We've all imagined what it would be like to live in The Walking Dead. And you know what? It's just such an interesting topic to think and talk about. So I've decided to list everything people get wrong about walkers in The Walking Dead, starting with what these walkers actually are. The name. Walkers aren't zombies. In The Walking Dead universe, zombie movies never existed. No Night of the Living Dead, no Dawn of the Dead, nothing. The word zombie doesn't register with survivors because pop culture never taught them what a zombie was. Rick Grimes and his group invented the term walkers because that's what they saw. Corpses walk. Other groups called them roamers, biters, geeks, lurkers, rotters, stenches, dead ones, whatever made sense to people who'd never heard George Romero's name. Robert Kirkman built this world specifically to avoid the trope where characters say, "Oh, it's like that zombie movie," except Kirkman himself screwed up twice in the early comics, accidentally using the word zombie before catching the mistake. He later admitted it always sounded weird to him, that he preferred roamers from the start, but fans took those slip-ups and ran with them, convinced the term was canon. Meanwhile, every other zombie franchise uses zombie freely. Romero's ghouls in Night of the Living Dead shambled without a name until sequels labeled them Living Dead. The infected in 28 Days Later get called zombies, even though they're technically alive, just rabid. World War Z's book uses Zach as military slang, but Walking Dead survivors are creating language from scratch. No references, no inherited culture. That's what sets them apart. You're not watching people who grew up on horror films, you're watching people who think they're the first to see corpses reanimate. So when someone calls them zombies in a Walking Dead discussion, they're importing outside lore that doesn't belong. The universe is sealed off from that influence. Every name you hear, walkers, roamers, biters, is organic survivor terminology, born from fear and practical observation, not Netflix binges. But if survivors invented these names from scratch, how did they know the one rule that keeps them alive? Keep that question in mind. Because what actually kills you isn't what you think, the infection. Here's where everyone gets it catastrophically wrong. Walker bites don't turn you into a walker. Read that again. The bite itself doesn't infect you with some zombie virus that rewrites your DNA. You're already infected. Everyone is infected. You were infected the moment you were born into this world, or the moment the outbreak spread globally, depending on how you read the timeline. The virus, disease, whatever it is, lives dormant in every human being. When you die, any death, heart attack, old age, car crash, doesn't matter, you reanimate. The brainstem kicks back on, and you become a walker. No bite required. So what's the bite doing? Killing you. Walker mouths are cesspools of bacteria from rotting flesh, festering wounds, and God knows what else. When a walker bites you, you're getting a massive bacterial infection that causes fever, sepsis, and death. Then the dormant virus activates, and you turn. The bite speeds up the process, but it's not the source. Fans constantly miss this. They see someone get bitten, watch them turn, and assume the bite transmitted the zombie plague. Nope, the bite transmitted a death sentence through infection, which triggered the reanimation everyone's hardwired for. You could die from a bullet, no walker involvement, and still come back. That's why survivors learn to destroy the brain immediately after death. Walker or not, you're a ticking time bomb. The comics make this explicit early on, but somehow the misconception persists. People think there's patient zero, some first infected spreading it person to person, but the outbreak wasn't a spread, it was a reveal. Humanity woke up one day realizing the dead don't stay dead anymore. Everyone's carrying it. You, me, Rick, Daryl, if he existed in the comics, which he doesn't. The bite is a red herring. It's the death that matters. This contrasts hard with other zombie films. In Romero's Night of the Living Dead, radiation or some unexplained phenomenon caused the dead to rise, but you needed exposure to turn. 28 Days Later's rage virus required blood or saliva contact. You're not born with it. Resident Evil's T-virus spreads through bites and scratches, creating new infected from clean hosts. Those are transmission models. Walking Dead is a revelation model. The disease was already everywhere, dormant, waiting. The apocalypse didn't start with one infected. It started when death stopped being the end. That's a philosophical shift people ignore when they slap zombie virus on it like every other franchise. So, if everyone's already infected, why do walkers look like they're rotting away? Here's where the science completely breaks down. Because walkers should have been gone years ago, but they're not. And the reason Kirkman keeps them around contradicts everything we know about decomposition. The rot. Walkers decay, obviously. Gray skin, exposed bones, hanging flesh, missing jaws, it's all there. But they decay way too slowly for reality, and that's intentional. In real life, a human corpse skeletonizes in months, maybe a year, depending on environment. Bacteria, insects, weather, all of it breaks down tissue fast. Walking Dead walkers, though, they're shambling around years into the apocalypse, still fleshy enough to bite and grab. Comics show walkers from early outbreaks lasting throughout the series, which spans over a decade of in-universe time. That's not biologically accurate, and Kirkman knows it. The slow decay is a narrative choice to keep walkers threatening indefinitely. You can't have a years-long survival story if all the zombies melt into skeletons by month 6. Other media handle handles this differently. World War Z's film version showed zombies decaying rapidly in cold climates, freezing in winter and thawing in spring. Land of the Dead introduced floaters, waterlogged corpses bloated from submersion. The Walking Dead games occasionally feature burnt or desiccated walkers in specific environments, but there are exceptions. Standard walkers keep enough muscle and tissue to function as dangers, regardless of how long they've been dead. It's convenient, unrealistic, and absolutely necessary for the genre to work. Fans who nitpick the decay rate are technically correct, but missing the point. The apocalypse isn't about accurate decomposition timelines. It's about sustained existential dread. Walkers need to stay relevant as threats, so the rot slows to a crawl. Physics be damned. But here's the thing. If walkers decay so slowly, why do they ever stop being threats? Keep that question in mind, because the answer isn't what you think. The comics never show walkers becoming completely immobile from decay alone. They get worn down, lose limbs, become crawlers or half bodies dragging themselves forward. But they don't just shut off. The virus or whatever animates them keeps the brain stem functional long after the body should quit. That's the horror. There's no natural expiration date. A walker might take a decade to decay into uselessness, and by then, dozens more have turned to replace it. The rot isn't a weakness. It's just cosmetic damage on a machine that doesn't know when to stop. But slow decay creates another problem. If walkers last forever, why aren't they getting faster as fresh corpses turn? The answer separates Walking Dead from every other zombie franchise, and it's the reason survivors can't just wait them out: the speed. Walkers are slow, 1 to 2 miles per hour, shambling, stumbling, tripping over their own feet. They're not sprinting, not leaping, not doing parkour. They're corpses with rigor mortis and degraded motor control. The comics are consistent about this. Walkers lumber toward noise and movement, but they're easy to outpace if you're not trapped. Games like Telltale's Walking Dead build entire mechanics around this. You can walk past walkers if you're quiet, sneak around herds, only panic when you're cornered. Their slowness is what makes them manageable in small numbers and terrifying in hordes. One walker is a nuisance. 100 walkers is a death sentence because they don't stop, don't tire, and don't need to rest. Speed isn't their advantage. Persistence is. Fans constantly confuse this with fast zombies from other films. 28 Days Later's infected sprint at full human speed because they're not dead. They're living people consumed by rage virus. The Dawn of the Dead remake in 2004 introduced fast zombies to Romero's universe, completely changing the threat model. World War Z's film version had zombies swarming like ants, climbing over each other in 10-foot-high waves. Those are different creatures. Walking Dead walkers don't do any of that. They shuffle, they moan, they reach with slow grabbing motions. If you see a fast walker in Walking Dead lore, it's either a freshly turned corpse with some motor function still intact, or you're watching the wrong franchise. The speed difference is fundamental to how survivors strategize. Fast zombies force immediate fight or flight. Slow walkers force long-term planning, resource management, and psychological endurance. But if walkers are this slow, this predictable, how do they still kill experienced survivors years into the apocalypse? The answer isn't speed. It's something survivors keep forgetting until it's too late. And that brings us to the intelligence debate, which Kirkman himself admitted he got wrong. Let's talk about intelligence, because this is where things get messy. Early Walking Dead comics showed walkers doing slightly smart things, turning doorknobs, picking up rocks, using tools. Fans and even some game adaptations ran with this, theorizing walkers retained memory or learning ability. Then Kirkman retconned it. He admitted those early depictions were mistakes, that walkers are supposed to be purely instinctual. No memory, no learning, no problem solving. A walker might stumble into opening a door by accident, but it's not thinking, doors open, let me turn the knob. It's pressing forward, and the mechanics happen to work in its favor. Later comics and games eliminated the smart behaviors entirely. Walkers became what they were always meant to be, mobile corpses driven by hunger, nothing more. This contradicts films like Day of the Dead, where Romero introduced Bub, a zombie that remembered parts of his human life and could use tools under training. Land of the Dead went further with Big Daddy, a zombie that led others and adapted to obstacles. Those are intelligent undead, evolving over time. Walking Dead walkers don't evolve. They deteriorate. The virus animates the brainstem, the most primitive part responsible for basic functions. But higher brain activity is dead. No frontal lobe, no memory, no personality. You're not in there anymore. The walker wearing your face is a biological puppet running on autopilot. Fans who claim walkers learn are mixing up early comic errors with actual canon. The smart behaviors were retconned out because they broke the rules Kirkman wanted to establish. Walkers are threats because they're relentless, not clever. So walkers can't think, can't learn, can't remember. Then how do they hunt? Because if their eyes barely work and their brains are mush, what's actually guiding them towards survivors? The answer explains why covering yourself in guts works, but also why it sometimes doesn't: the senses. Walkers hunt through sound and smell, not vision. Their eyes are clouded, decayed, functionally useless for detailed sight. They can detect movement and light changes, but they're not tracking you visually across a field. What they hear, though, that's a different story. A gunshot, a scream, a car engine. Anything loud draws them like magnets. The sound triggers their hunting instinct and they shamble toward it. Once close, smell kicks in. Living humans have a scent walkers can detect, something distinct from corpses or other walkers. That's why covering yourself in walker guts works as camouflage. You're masking your living scent with dead rot, confusing their senses. The comics and games use this repeatedly. Survivors smear gore on themselves to walk through herds unnoticed. It's disgusting, it's effective, and it proves walkers rely on scent over vision. This creates specific survival strategies. Survivors in the comics learn to move quietly, use melee weapons instead of guns, and avoid anything that makes noise. A herd of walkers can be diverted by throwing a rock to create sound elsewhere. They'll follow the noise like mindless drones. In Telltale's game, entire stealth sections rely on not alerting walkers through sound. You can stand 3 feet from a walker, completely still, and it'll ignore you if you don't make noise. That's not how most zombie films work. Romero's zombies seem to have functional vision, tracking prey across distances. 28 Days Later's infected definitely saw you. They were living humans with enhanced aggression, not corpses. Walking Dead walkers are sensory-impaired predators, which makes them easy to avoid individually, but overwhelming in groups, because sound attracts dozens at once. But they ignore animals. Walkers don't attack dogs, deer, birds, anything non-human. They also ignore each other, walking right past fellow walkers without aggression. The virus or instinct specifically targets living humans. Why? No canon explanation. Kirkman hasn't clarified whether it's pheromones, body heat, or something else that distinguishes humans from animals. It's one of the few unexplained mechanics, and honestly, it's better that way. Over-explaining zombie behavior kills the mystery. What matters is survivors can't hide among animals or distract walkers with livestock. If you're human and alive, you're the only thing on the menu. That singular focus makes walkers predictable, but also exhausting to escape. You can't trick them with decoys unless the decoy is human-shaped and human-smelling. But sound and smell only explain individual walkers. What happens when hundreds of them group together? Keep that question in mind, because herds follow different rules. And one herd mechanic makes them nearly impossible to stop: the herds. Individual walkers are manageable. Herds are apocalyptic. A herd forms when walkers converge on a single sound source, a gunshot, an explosion, a screaming survivor, and start moving together. Once grouped, they follow each other's movement, creating a massive shambling wave. The comics introduce herds as one of the biggest threats, wiping out settlements and forcing survivors to flee. A herd can number in the hundreds or thousands. Slow, but unstoppable. They push through fences, collapse walls through sheer weight, and funnel into any opening. You can't fight a herd. You can only redirect it or hide until it passes. The Alexandria community in the comics gets overrun by a herd, and it takes coordinated survivor efforts to draw them away using noise distractions. Games like Survival Instinct use herds as timed challenges. Get out of an area before the herd arrives, or find a hiding spot. Telltale's game features sequences where you're trapped inside a building, watching through windows as dozens of walkers press against the walls. The tension isn't from individual zombies. It's from the mass, the inevitability. Herds move like slow-motion tsunamis, consuming everything in their path. They're also drawn to each other. One walker's groaning attracts nearby walkers, who attract more, snowballing into a herd. It's a feedback loop survivors exploit. Fire a gun on one side of a town to pull a herd away from their escape route on the other side. Other zombie films use swarms similarly, but with different mechanics. World War Z's film showed zombies piling onto each other, forming literal towers to climb over walls. That's coordination Walking Dead walkers don't have. They cluster but don't cooperate. Land of the Dead's Big Daddy led a herd with purpose, directing them toward targets. Walking Dead herds are leaderless, driven by collective instinct, not strategy. The horror is the numbers. A single walker falls to a headshot. A herd requires explosives, fire, or massive environmental traps. Survivors in the comics dig trenches, build barriers, and plan escape routes specifically for herds. It's not paranoia when the threat is 1,000 corpses shuffling your way with no way to reason, bribe, or negotiate. Herds represent the zombie apocalypse's true endgame, nature reclaiming civilization through sheer mindless volume. So herds are unstoppable walls of death, which means there has to be a weakness, right? There is. But it's not the one most fans think, and the real weakness creates a problem survivors hate dealing with more than the walkers themselves. The weakness: destroy the brain. That's it. That's the only way to stop a walker permanently. Stab the skull, shoot the head, crush the cranium. Doesn't matter how, as long as the brain is destroyed. The comics make this clear early. Rick's first walker kill is a head stab. Every survivor learns this rule fast or dies. The virus animates the brainstem, so obliterating the brain shuts down the animation. Body damage does nothing. You can chop off a walker's arms, legs, gut it completely. It'll keep crawling toward you with its teeth. Decapitation decapitation works only if you destroy the head afterward. A severed walker head still snaps and bites. It's just a head. No mobility, but the virus keeps it active. Games build entire combat systems around this. Telltale's Walking Dead gives you limited ammo and forces precise headshots. Miss the head, and you waste bullets. Survival. Instinct lets you knock walkers down, but requires a final head stomp to confirm the kill. Some games add environmental kills, impaling a walker's head on a spike, dropping something heavy on it. The creativity comes from working within the one weakness rule. Fire is effective, but slow. Walkers burn, but they keep moving until the brain cooks. Drowning doesn't work. They don't breathe. Poison is useless. They're already dead. Only head trauma matters. This contrasts sharply with other zombie lore. Resident Evil zombies can be killed with enough body damage because they're mutated, not purely undead. Return of the Living Dead zombies are nearly indestructible, even surviving decapitation. Fire is the only solution. I Am Legend's Darkseekers die from any lethal damage because they're infected living humans. Walking Dead walkers are strict Romero rules undead. The brain is command central and nothing else matters. It's simple, brutal, and defines every combat encounter. Survivors carry knives, axes, crowbars, weapons that can pierce skulls. Guns are loud and attract more walkers, so melee is preferred. The weakness is universally known by survivors, which shifts conflicts away from how do we kill walkers to how do we kill walkers without dying ourselves. But destroying the brain only matters if you do it at the right time. Miss that window, and you've created a whole new threat, because the turning process has a timer nobody can predict. And that timer forces the most brutal decision survivors face. The turning. Everyone turn. Every single human. When you die, you reanimate. The time between death and reanimation varies. Anywhere from minutes to hours, depending on the cause of death. The comics show variance. Someone dying from a bite might turn within an hour because fever speeds up death. Someone dying from a gunshot might take several hours. There's no exact science. The moment of death is the trigger, not the time. Once the heart stops, the dormant virus activates the brainstem, and the corpse reanimates. Eyes open, mouth groans, and the walker starts hunting. This forces brutal survivor decisions. When someone dies, even naturally, you have limited time to say goodbye before destroying their brain. The comics are full of mercy kills, stabbing a friend's corpse in the head moments after death to prevent reanimation. It's traumatic, necessary, and strips away any dignity death might offer. You can't have funerals, can't bury intact bodies without risking them clawing out of graves. Every death becomes a disposal problem. Some survivors preemptively agree to head stabs upon death, treating it as a kindness. Others refuse, clinging to the hope they might not turn, which always ends badly. Games like Telltale's Walking Dead force you to make these choices interactively. A character dies, and you have seconds to decide. Stab their head now or wait and see. Wait too long, and they turn mid-conversation, attacking nearby survivors. It's psychological horror beyond the walkers themselves. The turning mechanic means trust is fragile. A dying friend is a future threat. Keeping injured people around is a risk. Mercy becomes violence, and violence becomes mercy. Other zombie franchises avoid this universality. 28 Days Later's infected don't turn everyone, only those exposed to the virus. World War Z's book has a 12-hour incubation period, giving survivors time. Walking Dead removes that buffer. Death is reanimation, instantly making every corpse a liability. The apocalypse isn't just fighting walkers, it's fighting the inevitability that everyone you love will become one. So everyone turns, always, no exceptions. Which raises the obvious question, where did this come from? Fans have been asking for 20 years, and Kirkman's refusal to answer isn't laziness. It's the entire point of the series. But that refusal created the most persistent misconception in Walking Dead history, the origin. Nobody knows where it came from. The comics never explain. Robert Kirkman has stated repeatedly that the origin doesn't interest him. It's not a mystery to solve. The virus, disease, or curse, whatever it is, simply exists. There's no patient zero, no lab accident revealed in a dramatic flashback, no government conspiracy. The world ended, the dead started walking, and survivors are too busy staying alive to investigate why. This frustrates fans obsessed with explanations. They want to know if it was a bioweapon, a natural mutation, an alien pathogen. Kirkman jokes about space spores in interviews, but confirms it's not canon. The joke itself became a misconception. People cite space spores as the real origin, even though it was explicitly a joke. Games like Telltale's Walking Dead follow the same rule. No origin, no cure, no hope of reversing it. The story focuses on human drama, who you trust, who you sacrifice, how you maintain humanity when the world's gone to hell. Adding an origin would shift focus to science and solutions, which Kirkman deliberately avoids. This differs from almost every other zombie franchise. Romero hinted at radiation in Night of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead blamed a military chemical called trioxin. Resident Evil's T-virus has an entire corporate backstory. 28 Days Later explains the phage virus as an infected chimp experiment gone wrong. Those are origin stories, offering context and sometimes hope for a cure. Walking Dead offers nothing. The apocalypse is a permanent condition, not a problem to fix. This changes the stakes. Survivors aren't searching for scientists or government bunkers with answers. They're rebuilding society from scratch, knowing the dead will always be a factor. The lack of origin makes the apocalypse feel random, unfair, and unstoppable. It's not humanity's fault. Not preventable, not fixable. You adapt or die. That's bleaker than most zombie fiction, which at least dangles the possibility of a cure or a reversal. Walking Dead slams that door shut. Whatever caused this is irrelevant because it's irreversible. The only story is survival. Fans who demand origins miss the point. The apocalypse isn't about where it came from. It's about what you do now that it's here. Kirkman's refusal to explain is the thesis statement. Stop looking backward, focus forward, or a walker's going to bite you while you're distracted by questions that don't matter. No origin means no cure, no hope, no way out. Just endless variations of the same threat. And while all walkers follow the same rules, some situations create versions that break those rules, or seem to, because what fans call variants aren't actually different species. They're something else entirely. The variants. Standard walkers are everywhere, but variants exist in specific contexts. Lurkers are walkers that remain stationary, often hidden in closets, dark corners, or under debris. They don't roam, they wait, either because they're trapped or because they've decayed into immobility. Survivors encounter them as ambush threats, opening a door and suddenly getting grabbed. The comics use lurkers to create jump scares, moments where complacency gets you killed. Roamers are the opposite, walkers that actively wander, drawn by distant sounds or just aimlessly shuffling. These are the visible threats, the ones you spot from a distance and plan around. Then there's environmental variants in games. Survival Instinct features armored walkers wearing riot gear or helmets, requiring multiple headshots or melee strikes to penetrate. They're not smarter or faster, just harder to kill because their skull is protected. Some walkers in the games are burnt, trapped in fire-damaged buildings, their bodies charred but still functional. Others are waterlogged floaters, corpses that drowned and now bob in rivers or ponds grabbing swimmers. These aren't new species. They're standard walkers shaped by their environment. A walker in a swamp looks different from a walker in a desert, but the mechanics are the same. Head destruction, game over. This contrasts with films that introduce intelligent or mutated variants. Land of the Dead's Big Daddy learned to use tools and led other zombies. Army of the Dead's alphas were fast, intelligent, and organized hierarchies. I Am Legend's Darkseekers were strong, coordinated, and could set traps. Walking Dead doesn't do that. Variants are cosmetic or situational, not evolutionary. A lurker isn't a different type of zombie. It's a walker that got stuck. An armored walker isn't a new threat. It's bad luck for survivors who need clean headshots. The comics and games avoid introducing special infected like Left 4 Dead's boomers or tanks because that breaks the rules. Walkers are uniform in behavior. The variance comes from numbers and environment, not abilities. A herd in a city is more dangerous than a herd in a field because of obstacles and noise, not because city walkers are stronger. But here's the thing, if walkers are so uniform, why do some depictions show them doing weird things? Keep that question in mind, because the answer is retcons and consistency errors. Early comics had walkers climbing fences, opening doors, using rocks as tools. Fans' theories they were evolving. Kirkman said no, those were mistakes, and later issues corrected it. Games sometimes include moments where walkers seem smarter than they should be. A walker opening a gate, another one avoiding an obvious trap. These are usually AI quirks or programming shortcuts, not canon intelligence. The lore is clear. Walkers are dumb. Any behavior that seems smart is coincidence or a glitch in storytelling. Fans who argue walkers have learning capacity are clinging to outdated or erroneous depictions. The current, consistent rule is walkers are mindless, and that's final. So walkers don't evolve, don't mutate, don't change. They're just corpses shaped by circumstance, which makes them predictable, manageable, almost boring. And that's exactly when they stop being the real threat. Because if walkers are this simple, what's actually killing people? The threat. Walkers aren't the real danger. Humans are. This is the core thesis of The Walking Dead, buried in the title itself. The Walking Dead refers to survivors, not walkers. People are what you should fear. Walkers are predictable. They shuffle, they moan, they bite if you get close. Humans lie, betray, murder, and form dictatorships. The comics spend more pages on survivor conflicts than walker encounters. Rival groups fight over resources. Leaders become tyrants. Trust collapses. Walkers are the backdrop, the environmental hazard that forces humans into moral compromise. Rick's group kills more humans than walkers over the series. Negan's group, the Governor's group, the Whisperers. These are the real villains. Walkers just set the stage. Games reinforce this. Telltale's Walking Dead is fundamentally about choosing between survivors, deciding who lives or dies, navigating interpersonal drama while walkers shamble in the periphery. The emotional gut punches come from human betrayals, not walker attacks. Survival instinct has you navigating survivor camps where people rob, manipulate, or abandon you. The walkers are obstacles. The humans are threats. This shifts the apocalypse from monster horror to psychological thriller. It's not, can we survive the zombies? It's, can we survive each other with zombies as an excuse for our worst behavior? Other zombie media explores this too, but not as centrally. Romero's Dawn of the Dead showed biker gangs looting while zombies roamed, hinting at human greed. World War Z's book detailed global politics collapsing, humans exploiting the crisis. But Walking Dead makes it the primary focus. Walkers are almost boring by mid-series in the comics. They're manageable nuisances. Humans are the variable. A walker tries to bite you, you stab its head, done. A human tries to manipulate you, and suddenly you're questioning everything. Alliances, morality, whether you're still a good person. The genre is zombie fiction, but the story is human tragedy. Fans who watch for walker kills miss the point. The kills are set pieces. The drama is what happens between survivors when the world has no rules left. Humans are more dangerous than walkers. Everyone knows this by now, but that's not the final layer. There's a reason Kirkman chose walkers specifically, a reason they're slow and mindless and inevitable. And understanding that reason changes what The Walking Dead is actually about. If you enjoyed this video and want to see everything people get wrong about The Walking Dead, click the video on the screen.